Welcome back to the Ben Mulroney Show, and thank you so much for joining us here. And whether you join us on YouTube or as a podcast, as a radio show, or on a streaming app, we know that your time is valuable to you. So the fact that you take any of it and join us on this adventure that we are trying to build the Ben Mulroney Show into something, I say thank you, because we can't do it without you. All right, earlier in the show, we were talking about some pretty significant news, just further proof that the consensus on immigration in this country has been broken. For decades, whether you were conservative, NDP, liberal, everybody agreed that the way we were building this country through immigration was correct, and it was strengthening an already robust country, and it was leading to great things in this country. And then all of a sudden, one day we wake up, and that's not the case anymore. And you have people like me who are really angry that I was one of those people who believed that firmly and with my heart, and it was a point of pride. And now I find myself criticizing immigration and the people that we're letting in. And I don't like that that's happened to me. I don't like that the powers that be made me into this person. And yet here we are. And it wasn't always like this. Under the Harper Conservatives, there were steps that were taken to strengthen and bolster Canadian identity through immigration. And so now we're going to talk with Chris Alexander. He was Canada's first resident ambassador to Afghanistan. He was elected at MP to Ajax and Pickering in May 2011. He was the Minister of Citizenship and Immigration from July 2013 until 2015 under Prime Minister Stephen Harper. He's also a distinguished fellow at the Macdonald Laurier Institute. Chris, welcome to the show. Hopefully not for the not for the last time.
Thanks for having me, Ben.
Okay, so we've got to
talk about these issues.
Yeah, so I want to ask you about what was it like around the cabinet table, about what were the goals of the Harper government in terms of immigration and like what were you trying to achieve through immigration?
Well, first of all, it was a very busy period for immigration. I think over my 2.5 years in cabinet, we had more bills come forward, more memoranda to cabinet come forward than any other portfolio. So it was an area of focus for the Prime Minister, for all of us, and it built on momentum that my predecessors had created. Jason Kenney served the longest, but there were others as well. And so first of all, it was busy. Secondly, there was support for growth in immigration, larger scale immigration, as you mentioned, more international students, more permanent residents, more of the skills that we knew we needed in Canada, from welders to technology startup venture entrepreneurs. And we saw this as a driver of our economic growth. And finally, I guess you'd have to say that it was popular. You know, these were things, there was always discussion, there was always debate about integrity measures, which were hard to make sure the rules were being followed. But there was always support for the larger numbers, for growing Canada, for immigration as one of the drivers of Canadian growth. And it's sad to see that really went off the rails in the 10 years that followed.
Yeah, well, let's talk about sort of that turning point in the election campaign during the debate, where Stephen Harper was, like, to be fair, given that his government fell, was on his heels defending something that I think today would be absolutely defensible, which was the idea that if somebody in Canada had another passport and they were convicted of terrorism, that we could send them back to where they came from. That today sounds absolutely acceptable, but for some reason, Justin Trudeau's very trite slogan of a Canadian is a Canadian is a Canadian grabbed hold in the voting public and led to that was one of a few reasons, I'm sure, but it was significant given what we're dealing with today. It grabbed hold and was something that helped usher in his government. What do you account for that?
Yeah, I mean, the way you put it is accurate and interesting, because what we were trying to do by saying that a dual citizen who was convicted of a very few crimes, high treason, where there hasn't been a conviction in this country in decades, I think, or terrorism, could lose their Canadian citizenship. That has been done the ability to revoke citizenship in similar circumstances has
Yeah.
been enacted in almost every major democracy,
Yeah.
certainly almost everywhere in Europe, in the United States, and so forth. So I think what you saw under Trudeau was kind of lowest common denominator approach to citizenship and immigration, that there weren't really any standards at all,
Yeah.
that Canada was the way it was, in his view, because we were just nice to everyone. We looked the other way, even when serious crimes were committed. And people bought into that at the time. There were, powerful voices in media and online, social media, that amplified that message at the time.
Yeah.
But we paid a price later.
Well, we're paying for it every day. We're paying for it every day, Chris.
And there were other distortions in that election. I mean, remember this issue of forced marriage and underage marriage.
Yeah.
Ben, it's unbelievable, but until our time in government, there had been actually at the federal level no minimum age for marriage in Canada.
Yeah.
So technically, that age was set by the common law, which, as we know from medieval times, could take the acceptable age for marriage into the early teenage years.
Yeah.
So we set it at 16. Some of us thought it should be 18. Because the UN and other organizations were urging us to do this.
Yeah.
This was one of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And then we were also trying to find out whether there were cases in Canada of forced marriage where parents were literally forcing their children against their will into marriages, which is illegal, has been for a long time in Canada. It was happening.
Yeah, and all of this stuff,
so
Chris,
we tried to put some measures into the immigration system that would prevent victims of forced marriage from being re-victimized in Canada, and that would allow police to investigate such cases. But as you saw in the election, it was used against us.
It was used against the government was, I think, unfairly tarred as draconian. Where like today, those positions I think would be a respite from the chaos that we are living through. And so now in the Globe and Mail today, there's a report that of nearly 20,000 foreigners with criminal convictions. So 17,600 foreigners with criminal convictions. They were granted rehabilitation by the Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada over the past 11 years. And when we talk about criminal convictions, we don't know exactly what they were convicted of, but that definition can include terrorism. It can include also capital crimes. The fact that we've become so permissive towards these things, and the fact that we've been let in so many people for whom there's no way that somebody with a serious crime on their in their portfolio is coming here to help build the great Canadian mosaic. It's just not reasonable to assume that they're coming here to do something bad. And this is where we are. So as you were trying to build that, like, what you must have a very particular perspective on what we have been experiencing as a country in terms of the downfall of our immigration system.
Well, first, it's not beyond repair. I mean, I think
that's good news.
That there are steps being taken now that are relatively positive, but it has been a brutal and disappointing 10 years. And as you've been hinting, by letting things slide down to this lowest common denominator, by letting backlogs grow up, by letting the numbers increase far beyond what the country's capacity to absorb them was, we've lost Canadians, right? It's not just you who questions the system now, who's disappointed by the system. It's the majority of Canadians, whereas at our time in office, an overwhelming majority supported our immigration program. So, I mean, on this, we have to be clear, rehabilitation has always been there.
Yeah.
There's always been a pathway to having your case looked at and allowing a person to prove that the conviction they received in the past was unjust or was motivated by politics or was so small, so trivial that it should not count against them in the Canadian immigration system.
Chris, we're going to have, if you can stick around, we'll keep you after the break.
Great.
All right.
Fantastic.
Don't go anywhere. And to everybody, don't go anywhere. This is the Ben Mulroney Show. Welcome back to the Ben Mulroney Show. And we continue to be in conversation with Chris Alexander, our former immigration minister under Stephen Harper, among many other accolades. And Chris, your work built on Jason Kenney's previous work of strengthening the Canadian Citizenship Act, which gave the government power to revoke Canadian citizenship from dual citizens convicted of terrorism, treason, spying for foreign governments, and made language proficiency and citizenship knowledge tests mandatory for certain applicants. I don't think that's a bridge too far. But the criticisms were leveled that it would allow the government to revoke citizenship without a fair trial. Justin Trudeau opposed the bill and called citizenship a right, not a privilege. And the Liberal government repealed many of these provisions in 2017 under Bill C-6. And look, you were very magnanimous before the break, saying a lot of good work is being done to fix these problems. But we've talked a lot on this show that we simply don't have the manpower or the technology or the ability or the budgets to go find anybody that is a problem. Like, people come to this country and in a lot of cases, they just disappear and we can't find them. Even if we wanted or had the ability to get rid of them, we don't have the ability to do that.
Yeah, that's what I worry about most of all, Ben. We used to have a system where you could say, and a country where you could say, hand on heart, there is not a large population of people here who are in Canada without status, and we don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think that's any longer the case. We've
Yeah.
had this extraordinary growth in people who are temporary residents, which means they're not citizens, they're not permanent residents. And our system is not designed for that. It's designed for permanent residents who become citizens. That's not just our system. That's our ethos. That's our approach to building this country over centuries. So it is worrying, and you're right. The numbers aren't coming down far enough. And they took this lowest common denominator approach to rehabilitation, for example, which was done in a few cases in the past, and they basically opened the floodgates. Yeah. I mean, 17,000 is an extraordinary number.
Yeah.
There is no reason why we should have 280,000 people in the backlog waiting for a hearing for asylum. That can be resolved with resources. The number of temporary residents who have work permits but are not permanent residents has ballooned to a very high number, much more than we've ever had before. Why is that happening? Yeah. Why are these people not able to come as permanent residents? Why are they not given the same rights and the pathway to citizenship as immigrants have had for generations in the past? Something's gone really wrong.
Yeah.
And I agree. I stand by my remarks. Things are being done to turn the corner on this, but it's not being done fast enough. No. There isn't enough political will, and we have governments. So there isn't that new approach that you would have had with a new government.
And that's what that's what I've said before. I said, our prime minister is doing a lot to distance himself from the failures of his predecessor and that government. But if there is one thing that should be taken seriously and taken seriously by way of an indication that the prime minister has put this at the top of his list, I think this should be that thing. But I want to ask you about sort of the knock-on effect of something like this. If I'm reading this news, if you're reading this news, then our allies are reading this news, and they are seeing these stories about our porous and unserious immigration system and how unseriously we have taken what is a very serious issue. I mean, if we've been this permissive about issues of terrorism, treason, and spying for foreign governments over the course of a decade, what does that do when we are engaged in bilateral or multilateral conversations about these very issues? Because my sense would be those countries who do take these things seriously would keep us at arm's length.
Yeah, I think it's done two things. One, it has harmed our overall reputation as a country that does things well when it sets its mind to it. Immigration was our calling card. Yeah. I mean, when I was minister, we had political parties, senior officials, the chancellor and ministers coming to find out from Germany, coming to find out how we did it, how they could do it better. Europe had been behind the curve on immigration policies, and other European countries, including the Commission, were watching us. Now, they're not looking to us as an example. And then secondly, as you rightly say, we're paying a price on national security. We are not seen as a country that has extremism under control, whether it's certain groups from South Asia, certain Islamic extremist groups that are raising money here, that are organizing rallies here on a large scale, that are organizing terrorist attacks from here.
Yeah.
We've seen that in the last couple of years, the ones that have been apprehended. And so we've lost a major calling card, a big part of our global reputation, which paid dividends on other fronts. And we've fallen down the pecking order in terms of national security among the Five Eyes and a wider group of allies.
Yeah.
It's a shame.
And, there's another thing about these stories, because there was a story in 2023 when, the CBSA was flagging a lot of these people who want to come to Canada as dangerous and therefore shouldn't be granted access to our country. And in 46% of the cases of these dangerous flagged people, the government said, no, it's okay, we're going to let them in. So when you have that coupled with this new story of how many people the Immigration, Refugee and Citizenship Canada said were of concern that were then let in. What does that tell you about how one hand either doesn't know what the other hand is doing, or one hand is ignoring the concerns of the other hand? It seems to me that a basic function of government is everybody should be on the same page and rowing in the same direction. And if you're not going to defer to the experts in those departments, and instead you're going to go off and do exactly what you want based on, I don't know, preconceived ideas, ideology, or carelessness, it could be a factor. What does that say about the basic function of government that we had over 10 years?
It says that the approach to government over those 10 years, especially in immigration, was not serious. It is outrageous that CBSA advice would be ignored that often. I could see some cases being questioned, but 46% is off the charts. Yeah. Moreover, you had a really cavalier, it also speaks, Ben, to arrogance. Really, the PMO knows best. And is prepared to ignore its national security advisors on these really important issues in that many cases. There was also a cavalier approach to things like the visa requirement for Mexico.
Yeah.
Right? We could all see reasons for lifting it, even in my time as minister. Mexicans wanted to come as tourists. Mexicans wanted to come and visit family. They're our important partner here in North America. But we got the advice not to do it because there are cartels in Mexico. Yeah. And the cartels are not able to get into the United States easily. And by lifting the visa requirement, we let them into Canada for many years on a scale that we still probably don't understand.
I hadn't made that link in my head. Chris, I only have about a minute left with you, and I want to get to one last question, because one thing that Prime Minister Trudeau did was weaken the power of the immigration minister to revoke citizenship. How important is it for that power to be restored? In about a minute, sir.
Extremely important.
Yeah.
Their information can come to light about a person who received citizenship. We have to, and it can be very, very alarming and serious. Yeah. If someone has participated in genocide in Darfur or some other part of the world, we have to be able to bring that information to bear. And in some cases, that's going to involve revocation of citizenship. I cannot imagine why that power would be taken away and weakened at a time when international peace and security is under threat. There are more genocides happening than ever before. There are more bad actors, malign actors. We need to give our ministers the tools they need to keep us safe.
Chris Alexander, really a wide-ranging conversation. I'm really glad to have gotten you on the record with this today. And I can tell that there's a lot of fun being had in your house. So we're going to let you get back to it. I hope you had a great Canada Day. I hope you enjoy your summer. And I hope you come back to the Ben Mulroney Show soon.
Thanks very much, Ben. Yeah, sorry about the pitter-patter.
No, I love it. I love it. You go enjoy yourself. Thank you very much, sir. Thanks so much for watching the show. Now, if you enjoyed what you saw, hit that subscribe button so you never miss another episode of the Ben Mulroney Show.